finished my rough draft for my historical fantasy book. This book took 6 months to write just because work, life, research, and now that it's finally done, I get to do the fun part, which I find fun, which is revisions. One of the reasons I'm so excited about revising this book is because in high school I had a very particular style that I would write in that's very much reminiscent of historical romances, which makes sense because I did read a lot of historical romances in high school, and so it influenced the way I wrote. I became known as the fluffy writer amongst my English teachers. And so when I started writing what you see behind me, it's more contemporary, which is a different style. You say things differently, not so Shakespearean sounding esque. And so anytime when I was working on my series and I would write those kinds of lines, I would backtrack and be like, no, I can't do this. So for 2 years, I kind of like pushed down my what I would consider my natural way of writing. And so when writing this draft, it felt like I was pulling hairs because there would be moments where I could feel the flow come back and I felt like myself pretty much essentially. And then I would struggle and I'd be like, this doesn't sound right. This is not how it's supposed to sound. However, it is the rough draft. And the reason I love revising so much is because I have a foundation. Now, I have a 93, almost 94,000 word foundation that I can fix the voice, fix most likely the tenses, because I hate tenses, let me tell you. I'm sorry, but you could probably give me an essay that switches tenses and I probably won't notice. I don't know why. I think my brain self-corrects and that's probably why. But there are a lot of things that I have to keep in mind. I'm actually going to write down the things that I know I need to remember. This is the notebook that I use for specifically this book. There's like names that I know I misspelled that I need to double check. Eye color that I have to double check because I write multiple things at the same time. And so sometimes how the characters look kind of blend or I get confused. There's little things that I have to keep in mind of like, you know, religion in the book, the magic system. I loosely have a magic system. The thing is, like, in this kingdom that I've created, magic kind of went away, and I kind of need to flesh out that backstory a little bit. There's a festival, which is where the climax of the book happens. I need to flesh that out a little bit more. There's like little things that I want to make notes of and maybe tackle those things first before I start from the beginning down. Something else that I have to keep in mind is that I definitely need to add scenes that flesh out the story a little bit more. The way my writing process works is that I will write when I get inspired, and the second that I hit a wall, I will start to outline. So let's say I hit a wall at chapter 3. Chapter 4, these two scenes have to happen. Chapter 5, these two scenes have to happen. And I do that until I get to the end because I always know how my book is going to end. And then I write those two things. I write those two scenes. In the middle of writing those scenes, if I think of something else, I write it as well. Obviously, I don't want the idea to escape me. So yeah. Now we're gonna jot down everything that we need to remember to look over. And then we're gonna start. All right, so I was supposed to continue reading the chapters and editing, but I've hit a few blocks because I kind of want to change things now that I've read the beginning and how I set up the story. And so I'm kind of just making notes, essentially, of things to remember. So, and I'm color coding because I want to be extra. But these are like things in terms of spelling and names. So there's a character where I want to change their name and their title. This is for world building. These are for chapters that I know I need to add. And then these are going to be things that are important to remember in terms of like plot points. So something that is important that happens in the beginning that has to get called back towards the end, that kind of vibe. Right now, I'm expanding the festival that this whole book takes place around and giving a bit more structure in the backstory of that. So, this is a 4-day feast, and I want something to happen on each night of the feast that will then lead up to the big battle that does happen towards the end of the book. And so I'm changing the name of the festival. I have to think in terms of like, this is a festival that has a 4-day feast. Each day is important because this festival is centered around a war that happened in the past. So an example would be like, on this day of the feast, they eat this food. Why? Because of whatever happened during that war. That was the thing that they rely on. So they eat it on that day as a remembrance. Like things like that, I'm trying to build upon and add to. So that is what I'm doing right now. And then I can go back to reading and editing.
Come on then. I warn you. Come on.
If the quality is a little bit different, because I'm using the front-facing camera. But I'm currently on chapter 3, and I'm kind of struggling a little bit because chapter 3 is from our MMC's point of view, and I'm having trouble with the tone. There's a few grammar issues in terms of tenses, and so my brain is trying to correct tone, but also trying to correct grammar at the same time. I think the other issue is the second half of the book tonally sounds different than the first half of the book. The first half of the book is how I kind of want it to sound throughout the whole thing. So I think a part of me is just kind of fighting how I want the book to sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the grammar for chapter 3, right? Get all that out of the way, ignore the tones and whatnot, and then start chapter 3 again and attack the tone. I think what's kind of complicated is that like our FMC, I know her. Like I know how she's supposed to sound. I know her little quips and whatnot. Whereas our MMC, yes, he is a knight and therefore he's very serious with his job and especially at the task that he is given. But when he's with her, he's very like rakish and like flirtatious and kind of goofy, and that contradicts his work personality. And so I'm trying to find a balance, and hopefully I can figure it out. I spelled that wrong. Wow, we are kind of looking rough, but you know what? It's fine. It's okay. So, it did take me a month and then like a day to revise the first 10 chapters because I finished my rough draft January 14th and then I revised the first 10 chapters February 15th. And honestly, it's because I was just in such a massive low state where I couldn't focus for like more than a paragraph and it was driving me utterly insane. I am trying to figure out how to fight through that depressive cloud that kind of hits once a month because obviously it stops me from doing what I want to do and accomplishing what I want to accomplish. I feel better going into the rest of the month and the rest of the book. I think because I had 2 author events back to back, it just really inspired me to keep pushing through. With that being said, I revised the first 10 chapters, which was a lot of work because a lot of the world building happens in the first 10 chapters and there were things that I need to change and kind of tweak in terms of like the magic system. And I ended up sending the first 10 chapters to my editor because those world building things are so important that I know they're going to affect the rest of the book. And so I want her notes as I continue editing so that I can like tweak those things. Originally my goal was to have everything completely done by my 30th birthday to start querying. I don't think that's gonna happen. However, I have a new goal that feels a bit more attainable, feels achievable, especially with the way I've been feeling mentally and trying to push through that. And that is if I could just have my first round of revisions, my like personal revisions done by my birthday, I would be so stoked. So I used to do like a chapter a day, but I kind of want to change that because obviously I need to move faster because my birthday is March 8th. I turned 30. Oh. But I think 10 chapters a week, which might sound a little bit crazy. It is a little added extra chapters. But it just, I don't know, something about it feels doable, but with enough push, right? Like I like it has a extra layer of like motivation and like you need to do this. That feels good. So my next goal is to revise the next 10 chapters of my book. And then yeah, I kind of already picked out the agents for querying. I think I'm going to do a separate video for when I start querying, how I go about all of that. And then I want to have a separate video for my writing process. After 5 books, I kind of figured out what my process is. This doing 10 chapters a week in revisions is something new that I'm testing out. And so if I like the way that works when I do my writing process video, I will add it. But yeah, she's done. She's off to the editor. And now we have to do chapters 11 through 21. And I have 42 chapters. However, the length of my chapters might change because I tend to be someone that groups chapters together towards the end because things happen really fast. But we'll see because I also have to add chapters. So the next part is going to be more fun because there's more tension between my main characters. The stakes start to go up. And yeah, I think I'm still figuring out the voice in terms of how the book sounds because it is a historical. It doesn't sound too historical. There's moments where it sounds how it's supposed to sound. But because I haven't written that way in so long, it's like trying to ride a bike, which isn't easy. Anytime somebody's like, it's like riding a bike. No, it's not, because I forgot how to ride a bike. And now I'm horrible at it. Anyway, I will see you in my next video, which will probably be another typing video. And then, yeah, bye.